ladies and gentlemen, we have 4 panelists for this next session. Please join me in welcoming them. I'll be naming them in alphabetical order, so please come up on stage when I call your name and take your seat from left to right in order. Alex Salmond is the former First Minister of Scotland. Mr. Salmond led the SNP, the Scottish National Party, for 20 years. During his leadership as the First Minister of Scotland, the Scottish Parliament actually brought the first referendum on independence in 2014. Alex, good to see you. Thank you very much. Professor Dr. Burhanettin Duran is the General Coordinator for SETA. Professor Duran was also appointed as a member of the Turkish President's Security and Foreign Policy Council. Professor Dr. Haluk Görgün is the President of the Defense Industries for the Republic of Türkiye. This is just the culmination of a very distinguished career. Most recently, he was the Chairman of the Board for Aselsan. Sir, good to have you on. Thank you. And rounding off the pack is Valeria Gianotta. She is the Academic and Scientific Director of the CESPI Observatory on Türkiye. Valeria is a good friend of the channel of TRT World. She is recognized as a Türkiye expert, not only by me, but also by the Italian government as well. Valeria, good to have you. Thank you very much. I'm actually not going to use this mic since I have a headset on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna dive right in. Burhanettin, I'm going to start with you. You have extensively written on Turkish politics, domestic politics, foreign policy. So you have a very good grasp of this. If I could kindly ask you to sort of set this up in terms of the philosophy that is underlying in today's Turkish foreign policy.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you know, Turkey's foreign policy options are sometimes controversial. Some would call Turkey revisionist, or some others will call revolutionary, but I would prefer reformism. Why do you all call reformism reformist? Contributing to the building of the system again, to have a new international order. Because there are some certain issues that Turkey is actually pro-status quo. For example, of course there should be international and regional mechanisms, organizations, and they should be effective in solving our problems from climate change to conflict prevention. But they should be reformed. As our Turkish President, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, often calls for a fairer world order. And the world is bigger than 5. So that's a call for reformism. But in some other issues, Turkey is ready for cooperation, inclusiveness, multilateralism, and these principles are actually directed to have mutual interests, because this is a necessity for Turkey. And I see this kind of option, this kind of approach to politics for Turkey is the realization of the necessity of the coming world. I mean, there is a chaos and possibility of new wars and conflicts, and the problems of solving the problems. I mean, in terms of climate change or conflicts, we have seen this during the pandemics. The world leaders are not capable of solving many problems. We have seen in this, in the war in Ukraine and also in Gaza. So in Turkey's policy, there's a humanitarian approach that calls for revising and seeing these fundamental values as our future, as the common ground for our future. And this is very related to pragmatism, flexibility, and adaptation to global changes. It's not just about ideals. You can be idealistic, but the realities may backfire, and you cannot persuade anyone because everybody has some interests. So you have to take care of their interests at the same time. And that's called win-win approach. You have to take care of your neighbors' interests. I can give you an example. President Erdogan was in Athens yesterday, and there was a good beginning for the rapprochement between Turkey and Greece. So that is a policy of normalization. You have to improve your relations, not just in terms of bilateral, of course, but also at the regional and global levels. So this is something that Turkey wants to build as a problem solver for the conflicts, and also to improve regional organizations as the Turkic states, for the Turkic states, also for the Islamic world, and also to be a real member of the European Union. These are not contradictory. These are realistic approach to world problems and the problems in the surrounding regions of Turkey. So I see this kind of philosophy under Turkey's new policy.
Thank you very much. You talked about 3 R's. I don't know if you all caught that. Revisioning, reformism, and rebuilding. You talked about there is a possibility of chaos. How did we get to this chaos? How did the international system that was set up post-World War II break down to where we have become, are now? Alex?
Well, let's take that phrase, the world is bigger than 5. You see, because what's the genius behind that phrase in the last decade since President Erdogan has been deploying it? Because reform of the United Nations has been called for basically since 1945, and there's been many formulations, and it's often been expressed as changes in the bureaucracy, slimming down this, doing that. But the world is bigger than 5 is the first time it's been encapsulated in a powerful, political, inspiring slogan. And it's more than a slogan, of course, because as I understand it in Turkey's approach and President Erdogan's approach, it's not just about adding it to the world being bigger than 6 or 7 or India or Turkey coming on to the Security Council. It's an evaluation of how you can stop the United Nations being immobilized by the veto power. And the most recent example of that, of course, is Gaza, where the latest General Council resolution in Gaza was carried by 2/3 or more of the General Council, but the veto power immobilized any effective action. So I think nobody's going to say exactly how you're going to re-establish a world order which has been not fraying at the edges, has been dissolving in 1 or 2 administrative changes. But I do think that phrase, the world is bigger than 5, points the way to something of a solution. And that is to allow a situation where the veto power in the United Nations can be overridden. That certain resolutions, certain imperative, and Gaza would certainly be one of these, are so imperative, so demanding of world attention, that they could not be vetoed if a certain threshold of support was reached on the General Council.
Thank you, Alex. Valeria, when President Erdogan uttered those words at the United Nations, the world is bigger than 5, all of a sudden I think it was sort of a transition from AD to BC. All of a sudden, many countries around the world were looking to Turkey and its leadership through different lens. From a European perspective, how do you think what was this for them when President Erdogan uttered those words, and when you look at what has been coming for the last decade or so in Turkish foreign policy?
Well, I do believe Turkey has been working a lot, and it put a lot of efforts in order to create a strong state building, an institution building structure. and it succeeded because the foreign policy of Turkey is not just managed by the president, but it has also an important apparatus throughout the agencies, right? The national defense agencies and some other agencies that they are related to defense, to cultural diplomacy, education diplomacy, emergency diplomacy, humanitarian diplomacy as well. So there is a vision, and there are some actors entitled to following up this vision and to construct in a positive way over this. And this, of course, have arisen in Turkey as a main stakeholder in the international system and also in the eyes of European Union. And Turkey nowadays is perceived on a base of equality. So there is no a gap of power, I do believe, between Turkey and the main international stakeholders, but Europe as well is looking at Turkey as an equal state with the same rank within the international arena. And also, of course, when we speak about the approach of European Union towards Turkey, we shouldn't neglect that there are some frictions still on the table. I mean, Turkey is still a candidate member of European Union. This candidacy, I mean, the negotiation
Since
process.
1999.
Exactly. But also before, because if we look at the path of Turkey towards Europe, I mean, the European community before and now European Union, it started back in the 60s along the Ankara agreements. And then the customs union was created, and then 1999, again, the candidate membership was allocated. The negotiation process started back in 2005. But it was a sort of handicapped, I would like to say, negotiation, because since the very beginning, we had, unfortunately, to deal with the Cyprus issue. And actually, the Cyprus issue nowadays is one of the most critical issues in the foreign policy of Turkey in order to be fully recognized, actually, within the European frame. Also, because this Cyprus is blocking the negotiation process as well. But when it comes to Cyprus, we need also to think in terms of energy and the Eastern Mediterranean issues. They have created a sort of spillover regarding to the relations with some other countries and states in that area. And I think what happened yesterday, and everybody, I think any of us was very happy to look at what happened in Athens yesterday. I mean, along the meeting of President Erdogan with the Greek counterpart was a positive sign. Again, Turkey is showing and proving that it's able to overcome any friction, is able to propose a constructive solution throughout cooperative approaches. So, and I think yesterday that was evident, that despite the friction, I mean, there is the will to solve in a sustainable way any problem that it may still persist and create a sort of other spillover in the region. Moreover, I will say that Turkey is also proving to be more aware, comparing to other international actors, of the dynamics occurring in the international system. I mean, the fact that yesterday we had this important meeting shows that Turkey is aware that the dynamics within the region are changing. And another proof was the normalization with some other controversial partners that Turkey had in the region, for example, with Egypt, the normalization that also it happened with Israel, but then unfortunately we are back to the past once again, not because of Turkey's fault this time. And also the positive dialogue that Ankara is building up upon Armenia in regard with Syria as well. So there is this will in capitalizing on the challenges coming from the international scenarios and the regional scenarios as well, and making it as opportunity to everybody in a sort of positive dividend for the region, but also at a global level in terms of stability and peace. And I think this is one of the shared goals with the main international stakeholder. But I will say that what makes the difference between Turkey and the so-called great powers or the great actors, according to a specific interpretation of global dynamics, is the vision. Mm-hmm. Overall, if we look at what's happening in Israel and in the Gaza Strip, unfortunately, the West lost any sort of leverage and is affected by a lack of vision in coping with the crisis. while on the other hand, Turkey is proving once again to be a pivot country, a pivot state in the region, and also is pretty much active in providing humanitarian aid. And this has been one of the golden points of Turkey diplomacy. I mean, Turkey, I think, is one of the main international donors in terms of humanitarian aid. Recently, if I'm not wrong, the amount of humanitarian aid delivered international was equal to $8 billion, if not more. And it is a humanitarian aid that does not have any preference in terms of religion or in terms of culture. For example, after the pandemic, Turkey has helped more than 100 countries, and Italy, the country I'm coming from, was the first who received the amount of medical equipment.
And it's important to know because, I mean, it was literally the epicenter in this part of the world.
Yes, I mean, for us it was the darkest time of history ever, and in that time, Europe left us behind. So we were in despair, literally, but it was Turkey who delivered the first cargo of medical equipment. So I think those are all proofs on how Ankara is acting within the international scenario and is arising also vocally. I mean, he's able to speak up, right? Because he knows that he has an important structure in terms of strength of the state behind, and also it has a new leverage within the international system that, I mean, it has gained overall in the last 20 years.
Valeri, you actually said vision is what sets you apart. That being said, I actually want to turn to Haluk Bey. You have to give it. I mean, it's the Turkish defense industries that's really had a very progressive vision that has made it really stand out. At TRT World, besides presenting the news, one of the things I do is I actually do a program called Next Tech. Our most popular programs are the ones on the Turkish defense industry and the new developments, whether it's the drones, the autonomous planes, the helicopters, the communications satellite. So, Haluk Bey, I want to turn to you and ask you if you could sort of lay for us some of the challenges that the Turkish defense industry has gone through in developing some of the indigenous, excuse my language, to bring it where it is today.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll try to explain actually very early beginning. Actually, I can summarize it in 5 stages. In early 1980s, Turkey has a primary goal to set for actually having establishing the national defense industry and to meet the real need for the defense, our armed forces and security operations, security organizations, and also modernize their ordnance and resources using the national resources to maximum extent. And the second stage, actually, after this some years, some 10 to 20 years, at the end of the 1990s to 2000s, the approach now altered from the ready-made procurements to purchases to joint production and co-production level. Actually, as a result, various outstanding equipment or platforms resulted in, like armored combat vehicle, light transport, aircraft, basic training aircraft, and some Cougar helicopter can be an example.
The F-16 program, wasn't that sort of part of that as well? Initially with General Dynamics?
It was in 1985 or so. Okay. So from 2000 to 2010, now we have another stage. At that stage, we started for the partial design approach to main platforms. Such we are now talking about the Altay, Milgem projects, Anka, Hürkuş, etc. Those were the result of this partial design for platform approaches during 2010. And after 2010, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, the need of our armed forces met through the so-called indigenous design. approach for our platforms, like helicopter program, National Combat Aircraft Project, Göktürk 3 satellite programs, with priority to given to domestic production, of course, to maximum extent. And the last stage was coming with the 11th development plan, which was announced in 2019, is to meet the needs of, again, for the armed forces and the security organizations to use the national technologies and the domestic, which means in that domestic to use, again, maximum extent in Türkiye, and also strengthening this defense industry ecosystem with view to exporting and to ensure the diffusion and to the skills that we have gained from the defense industry to use in the civil applications, to use the civilian realm, actually. And the resulting projects allowed us to minimize the foreign dependency, of course. And we have, in that, continued with the actually extreme localization rate we ended up with, and life cycle management for the platforms and the equipment that we have, and performance-based logistics were the concern of us. Today, when we look at the numbers now, actually we are contributing a lot to the country's economy with more than 3,500 companies working for defense industry, and $12 billion US dollars for turnover was last year's number. And we have more than 81,000 people just working for defense industry. And we have reached $4.4 billion for export. It was, again, the last year, and we haven't announced it before. Therefore, we are expecting for more. We have targeting more for this year. And at the end of the year, we'll be explaining those, the late numbers. And also, we have running more than 900 projects, different projects. Some of them subsystem projects, some of them are platforms projects, and we are announcing when the time comes, actually. And if we are talking about the success of those, and we look at the processes and the agendas, what we have in the needs in the defense sector, we look at it comprehensively, and we think of the strategic perspective, and then abandoning the traditional approaches to actually to their functions and progress all accordingly that has been used before. So we don't use a traditional approach when we have new projects, new platforms or those. So when determining our strategic goals, we consider how to best meet the need of our defense security forces, but also pay due consideration to such issues as exports and financial resources management and digital transformation and dual use, of course, defense and civil applications, and groundbreaking technologies with primarily, of course, sustainability. Those are our concerns when we are looking for anything on our table. So we believe that as a defense sector, we not only contribute to the image of Turkish brand, also we are working for the global peace. So this is the main motivation in defense sector. So when you think all of the things that I have mentioned, we have to think holistically, and we have to make a holistic strategy and novel structure for the defense sector, and in which the stakeholders are supported in their efforts to provide services with focus on high efficiency under common vision, which is very important, and we allow them to mobilize their potential and capabilities toward the same goal. So it is our motivation, and we try to motivate for same goal. And we actually, last but not least, actually we are also encouraging SMEs to be more in having position in the projects, in the subsystems, and we are encouraging for just not for be part of the equipment, but also the real part of the system. So the human capacity is very important. We are working closely with the universities and institutes and having different also courses for the universities, and we are working with some technical high schools too.
I mean, in a sense, you could say, in a rising tide, all boats rise. Alexander, did you want to jump in?
No, I was just going to say that the timing of the normalization, as the professor called it, of relationships between Turkey and Greece is quite superb. I mean, you know, this is a very high-powered forum. We've got media executives, very distinguished people, but we're all human beings. And there's no doubt it is greatly encouraging as human beings, you know, to wake up in the morning to listening to the radio or television, or more likely the social media, and to find out that something progressive is happening. It really is, you know, in a world of disaster and war and suffering, to actually see a progressive development. Incidentally, I was really impressed that President Erdoğan took his cabinet to work with the entire Greek cabinet in the meeting yesterday in Athens. I mean, I couldn't, I mean, it was all I could do to get my cabinet to work with itself, never mind working with another cabinet. So it's a first-class initiative, and the timing is really encouraging for people around the world.
Burhanettin Bey, so two of the issues that we talked about since the beginning of the panel, obviously there's a lot of praise between the rapprochement between Turkey and Greece. We also talked about sort of Israel and Hamas. Clearly we're seeing a change in the global power dynamics. When you sort of couple that with the discernible effects of multilateralism, I'm wondering how you see Turkey playing this field, the trajectory. Where is Turkey going to be in 5 years, 10 years, when it follows this path?
Yeah, thank you, Alican. Well, I think there are some, at least two conflictual trends in world politics. One is towards multilateralism and inclusiveness, and because this is out of necessity for all humanity. But at the same time, there is a search for, or there is a leading for multipolarity. Just it is because of the great power rivalry. So there is a clear need to find mutual interest for all different nation states. So Turkey is very cognizant of this reality, and actually Turkey is one of the leading countries that would adapt to this reality in the world. So what are the parameters to navigate into this world? There are some principles, like Turkey is trying to provide stability in the surrounding region, sometimes by using soft but sometimes hard powers. Like in Libya, there was a conflict there and Turkey involved militarily there, and now at least we have stability there. And also it is the same with Karabakh. Turkey was involved in supporting Azerbaijan in this conflict. That conflict was not solved in the last 30 years. And now we are just talking about the agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia and the future of stability, economic integration of Caucasus. So that's another example to that. And Turkey will try to give some security to neighbors and of course to contribute to their territorial integrity, like in Syria and in Iraq. That's other examples. But also Turkey is trying to promote regional integration, economic cooperation, and connectivity by initiating some projects of energy hub, being an energy hub, or contributing to supply chain issues. And I can add this, Turkey is also trying to develop and further the existing international institutions and regional mechanisms, like reforming the UN, that would be very effective to solve the problems.
I'm sorry.
Otherwise, it's dead, already
Reforming what,
dead.
I'm sorry?
The UN.
Okay.
I mean, just look at the Israeli massacre in Gaza. Guterres, General Secretary, is talking about the death of the UN. So Turkey is one of the countries. Actually, President Erdogan is one of the few leaders who is talking about why don't we operate this institution to have a solution. So these are the international ways, multilateral ways that Turkey is trying to contribute to solution. But at the same time, Turkey is very committed, strongly committed to her strategic autonomy. If there is a tension between Turkey and the US, there can be tensions. Because of Turkey is very committed to national interest. You can give the examples of S-400, F-16, and other issues. But that doesn't mean that Turkey is trying to be out of any regional alliance or any bloc. No, Turkey is within NATO, but Turkey is trying to redefine her interests and to make the allies understand that Turkey's security interests are not met within the current conditions of the NATO. Just an example, US is arming the YPG in Syria.
Yeah.
That is not acceptable. So Turkey is there to make it sure that I am not accepting this.
And how would you describe
And another one is that Turkey is ready for the problems and the crisis of the great power rivalries, to take sometimes leads in helping to find the solution.
I'm just wondering, how would you describe the Black Sea Grain Initiative? And that's Turkey, obviously, no state has a bigger interest in safe passage in the Black Sea and the Straits than Turkey. Very much President Erdogan's initiative, but had the imprinter of the United Nations. So how would you describe a situation where, and I mean, incredibly important, I mean, arguably saved 40, 50 million people around the world from starvation last year at a key moment. So hugely important. But could that system be replicated elsewhere, where there's an obvious thing that's a good thing to do, to broker a deal between two warring parties to allow the free flow of grain into the world economy, but then get the imprinter of the United Nations to back it up? Can you see other situations, Professor, where that might be a template for more effective action, given that United Nations imprinter?
Well, your contribution is very valuable. Turkey's efforts to have the grain deal issue is an example that when we face a crisis, we can do something together. Thriving together, the motto of the TRT World Forum is just as an example to that. We can do this. It is the same with the crisis in Gaza. Turkey is trying to have a solution, to promote two-state solution in order to have security for both Israel and Palestine. So there should be something done. And President Erdogan is trying to do this by diplomacy, leader to diplomacy. And he's traveling a lot, I can tell you that he is the leader that most travels around the world. So why? Because there is such a necessity of leadership. Unfortunately, let's be honest, unfortunately, we are not seeing this kind of leadership from Europe, not from the US. So Turkey is trying to be an example to that, diplomatically. And the same thing should be done with the Gaza crisis. If the Gaza massacre is not stopped any soon, that would be the malaise of Western values. That would be one of the most important crises of the international system. So Turkey's approach here is to contribute to something positive to that.
Valery, Burhanettin Bey said, unfortunately, Europe is not stepping up. You know, you have to call a spade, and that does seem to be the case. Do you feel that it is easier for Türkiye to actually project its message of what it wants to do because of a lack of what we're seeing from Europe? And what other areas do you feel that sort of Türkiye can actually demonstrate in terms of building diplomatic relations, solving global problems as it celebrates this new century?
Well, definitely Türkiye is trying to provide solutions. What Burhanettin just said, it's true. In Europe and in the West in general, we have a lack of leadership and a lack of vision. And this has become dramatic along to the most recent catastrophe between Israel and Palestine. Also, the messages coming from some European offices weren't so positive in terms of finding a solution. But unfortunately, in this specific issue, the perception of Turkey as a negotiator, maybe, along the conflict between Israel and Palestine, will not be so positive as it was along the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Because negotiation at that time and the negotiator role was accepted by both sides. I refer to Russia and to Ukraine, right? They accepted the role of Turkey. Turkey was able to put the parts together at the margin of Antalya Diplomacy Forum in 2021 and then again in Istanbul. But when it comes to Hamas and Israel, unfortunately Hamas is considered by many of the European, if not Western countries, as a terrorist organization, not as a resistance movement. Therefore, the perception in these regards might be critical in terms of accepting Turkey as a negotiator actor. But I think that Turkey and President Erdoğan, despite everything, is also aware of this, the perception. Indeed, the mechanism that has been promoted regarding to Israel and Palestine has been the guarantor mechanism, so a quadripartite mechanism, and Turkey aims at arises in a guarantor state of the dialogues and the negotiation mechanism. So I think also about this there is pretty much awareness by the Turkey state and the Turkish political elite of the international dynamics. But I just want to point it out something related to UN. I think what President Erdoğan points and is very vocal about is the need of reforming UN security system. Yeah. I mean, because it just reflects a distribution of power which is not existing anymore in our international environment. But Turkey has been also very active in proposing some other actions and in raising awareness and sharing good practice within a UN system. For example, I refer to the action of the First Lady Emine Erdoğan, that just 1 year ago, I think, 14th of December 2022, the resolution related to zero waste initiative was approved. So this is another example, another proof that Turkey is pretty much active, is trying to raising awareness at global level and wants to share good and best global practice.
Okay. But I'm sorry, okay. I have about a couple minutes left. I do want to give Haluk Bey sort of the last word, just sort of in terms of equal time. Haluk Bey, very briefly, if you could sort of talk to us about the role that the Turkish defense industry has come and sort of how it plays in the role that Turkish diplomacy is headed towards. Burhanettin Bey talked about the exertion of soft power and hard power. He gave various examples, but if you could sort of just briefly summarize that.
Okay. Actually, in fact, talking about the defense strategy in the new center of our country, so it is a position as a system-forming actor, right, Turkey, and it requires addressing many issues simultaneously, such as taken actually for the historical dimension and the current situation and future vision too. So there is no doubt that the number of topics this subject encompasses can be expanded to some factors too, like technology and infrastructure and global threats, developments in nearby geographies, foreign policy issues, and social peace and counter-terrorism mechanism, etc. So, and it is necessary to take the action in respect of these processes and turn our discussions the result of actually the analysis. And it's also necessary to maintain continuous support and sustainability at every step, particularly in the leadership is very important in these processes. So what I'm trying to say actually here, the conjuncture and the instability in the region in particular are a cause of concern and will continue for maybe for many years. And our deterrence status can be ensured only through the maintenance of strong defense industry as a Turkey. So we cannot talk about on independent Turkey if we cannot meet all the needs that I have mentioned. So the vision of our President Erdoğan is strong in the strategies, and he has put forward for his vision in the defense industry. So for the last 20 years, Turkey started from crawling, and now we are, thank God, we walked and we are running right now in the defense industry. So there will be always discussions, analysis, strategies to contribute to this journey. And we have been admired. We have been actually always asked for many countries how we can take the role model that you actually succeeded in Turkey in defense industry, because it was clear that we were highly dependent on the foreign sources for 20 years ago. Now we are talking about air vehicles, tanks, ships, aircrafts, and munition systems, so on and so forth. So we should not, we know that we shouldn't be lagging behind the latest technology we are facing and will be facing through the near future. So we are therefore pursuing a self-sufficient strategy for that. So which leading us to develop national technologies as much as we can do in the crucial areas. So yes.
I'm sorry, but I sort of really want to wrap it up. If I could just get sort of like a last couple sentences from you, Haluk Bey.
Okay, I'm just wrapping up with your question, actually. So we believe our ability to be successful in the task through the contributions are young and dynamic resources, which we believe that those are the great asset of Turkey. So we continue to take bold steps for ensuring that Turkey's full independence for this. And actually, we have met for accordance with the Turkey as a global power. So we are targeted, assigned actually this leadership of President Erdoğan, and we have a full faith on this. So we will be successful.
It is extremely difficult to actually, when you have four experts on stage, to talk about 100 years of Turkish policy and sort of fit it into 60 minutes. But it is unfortunately that is the time that has been allocated to us. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in actually thanking Valeria, Haluk Bey, Burhanettin Bey, and Alex as well.